Alright, should be. Yep, I see the file. We are recording. Yay! For what was this? Chapter 23, which is. It's a fairly long chapter, so it includes a lot. We've got the battle in the arena. It ends with the clones arriving. So before that, you got the trio: Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Padme being brought out into the arena to be executed. You also have a little bit of them being tried, which is really just, yeah, you're guilty. We're gonna kill you. Go. Well, any words you want to say? Kind of thing. And also the formal Jar Jar nominating, well, moving. Sorry, Jar Jar moving for Palpatine, the Supreme Chancellor, to be given emergency powers. Um, is that which that's actually where I've got my first note that I do find it odd. This whole because it's Jar Jar who is a representative of Naboo and Padme isn't here. Well, obviously, then, whatever he says, she will fully agree with. So all of the experience that they have with her, that translates to him. It's like, no, that's not quite how that works. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to. I tend to put my feet on the legs, reaching out to the wheels of the chair, and they're out of alignment. Anyway, yeah. Okay. I actually do want to. So they're in the arena, gonna be killed, and Boba is looking at this and talking. Are they going to feed them to the beasts? Boba Fett asked. Yes, Boba. He had many times. Jango answers. He had many times told Boba stories of the Geonos in arena. Oh, I hope they use an acolyte, said Boba matter-of-factly. I want to see if it's as powerful as I've read. Jango just smiled and nodded, amused that his son was already so interested in such things, and glad for the dispassion in his tone. Boba was being strictly pragmatic here, even in the face of the execution of the three people. He was taking the entire scenario with a cool and collected pragmatism that would allow him to survive in the harsh galaxy. He was a good learner. I get it, but there's also that part of me that's like, Django, don't you want a better life for him than this violence? Anyway. Um, yeah, so there was more to talk about with the whole 3PO head swap situation. That is just like, no, no, none of this would work that way. So he already screwed up, and they're like, oh, well, I guess he needs to be programmed some more. So they plug him in and start trying to program him. One problem is that it describes his head as so full of the linguistic stuff that all the new programming coming in is just getting translated and so losing its meaning to him. So it's not really making any difference. Except it's also, he has become so skilled a shot that when being let out and he sees R2 over there who's got a restraining bolt on him, he's like, oh, okay, raise the gun, fire, and just shoots off the restraining bolt. And then it's like, oh, it looks like, they're like, oh, it looks like we need to reprogram him. Somebody looks at R2. Nah, it's okay. No damage here. Just send him in. If you're reprogramming a droid, why do you not remove the program that already exists? Hang on, actually. Let me turn the camera some instead of me moving away. Okay, why did it do that? Oh, I accidentally turned on the AI tracking, it seems. You know what? That's fine, because now it's going to position correctly, and boop, turn it off. Yeah, this is stupid. The 3PO thing, and it's also, wait. You work in a droid factory. You know the specifications of the droids you're making. 3PO's head is not part of that specification. And you're reprogramming, you're looking at him and doing all that, and it's like, nah, this is fine. I get that these people aren't necessarily QA, but damn, man, they're blind. What the? In the movie, it's like very little and it's funny. So you kind of look past it as being impossible. But here it's like, no, you're tripling, quadrupling down on this. We're not even, Double Down was behind us already. It's like, none of this makes sense. None of this works that way. Stop. Except they don't. It actually continues on. With the droid head on 3PO's body gets knocked off before his head is... Well, he's knocked down and R2 moves the head. But when his body falls down, he's actually like, my legs aren't moving anymore. It's like, what? He has a telepathic link to his body? What the hell kind of droid is this? He's not a protocol droid? Then it's also technically R2 doesn't make sense either. Because why are clones better than droids? They can think creatively. R2's a very creative droid. I get the whole anthropomorphizing the droids. That's the word. Anthropomorphizing them from the original trilogy, because they do have personalities there. But at the same time, 3PO's is very well defined throughout the original trilogy. Okay? And he is a droid. He is not a person. He's a droid. R2 is still a little nebulous there, but it's because sometimes he will go off and do stuff, but it's like, yeah, he was programmed. It's like, he has a curiosity to him. But by and large, he fixes things. That's what he does. Okay? Both of them are not really droids at this point. They're very human in this. It is to a level they should not be at. But yeah, and there's also one thing. So now that R2 is able to move around on his own, so he downloads the plans and is figuring out how to get out of the factory. Soon after they were gone, so like people walking by, R2-D2 rolled away from this council without notice. Wait. Oh wait, no. Sorry, that's. I need something low down this page. I thought that it's in like the same spot on the page, but it's a different page. Here it is. He wandered along a meandering course through the complex, avoiding as many Geonosians as possible, passing those he could not avoid, with an air of detachment, trying not to look out of place. The hell? How does a droid have an air of detachment? How does a droid have well, I guess 3PO would have an air of arrogance, but it's like, how does a droid have an air of detachment? How does it even understand that? I mean, even 3PO, yes, he has an air of arrogance. He doesn't turn that on and off. That's who he is. That's what he is. It doesn't vary. So he doesn't really have an air to him, and he certainly can't control it. It's just dumb. Okay. Okay, I think I'm down to just 3 things left. Maybe 2 rants? Like 2 of them are like half rants. One I think I got a rant on. Okay, so this is they are being Anakin and Padme specifically being let out. So Obi-Wan is already in the arena, it's just these 2. They are bound and are able to face each other and all that. So don't be afraid, Anakin whispered. I'm not afraid to die, she replied, her voice thick and soft. I've been dying a little bit each day since you came back into my life. What are you talking about? Then she said it, and it was real and genuine and warm. I love you. You love me? He asked, overwhelmed. You love me. I thought we decided not to fall in love, that we would be forced to live a lie, that it would destroy our lives, but her words had brought a wash of contentment over him. I'm okay with a lot of this, by the way, what I've already read. But, and a little bit more of what's it gets very wordy, though, and I think it's too wordy. I think our lives are about to be destroyed anyway, Padme replied. My love for you is a puzzle, Annie, for which I have no answers. I can't control it, and now I don't care. I truly, deeply love you, and before we die, I want you to know. So now it's just about them leaning closer together to kiss. And it's like it's too wordy. There's too much here. It's honestly, I think my love for you is a puzzle, Annie, for which I have no answers. I think honestly, you could have just stopped there, or just reworded it a little bit. But the whole "I can't control it, and now I don't care. I truly, deeply love you, and before we die, I want you to know." It's like you really didn't need the "I truly and before we die, I want you to know." I mean, it's like we already had that joke. I think our lives are about to be destroyed anyway. It just stop talking, woman. Just kiss him is kind of the thing. I mean, it's too wordy. Too wordy. So that's my half rant there. 567 is the next. So this is the arena fight is going, which, by the way, they went from 200 Jedi supposedly down to about 20. And hang on, I gotta turn that back a little bit. Okay, maybe too far. Oh. There. Nope, I thought I had turned it on by accident. I thought I turned it on by accident, so I went to turn it off, turned it on by accident. Anyway, it was time for improvisation, too wild a scene for coordinated and predetermined movements. Just the kind of fight in which Padme excelled. But Mary's suing her again. I mean, it's just like in Phantom Menace. She's young, gifted politician, but she's very young, and it's like, moves like a seasoned warrior. It's like, how does she have it? Naboo is supposed to be peaceful, like, she shouldn't know this. That's like, here, just kind of fight in which she excelled. It's like, she's had one other fight, to our knowledge, and it was that, 10 years ago. She practicing? What is this? This also makes her so much more a hypocrite as well. That no, we can't possibly have an army. That would just lead to war. It's like, woman, how much training do you do with your blasters? It's like, I go every week. It's like, so you have these yes, you have blasters, and you have this, yes, but you don't think that the Republic should get to do that? Well, I need to defend myself. The Republic doesn't need to defend itself. You also have your own security. Plenty in the Republic don't. And it's like, you're still doing this. It's like, no, we don't need to. That's my second half rant. I don't know. And there's a part of me that's tempted to make extrapolations about the thoughts of the people that wrote this. That is not just R.A. Salvatore, the author for it, but would also be George Lucas and Jonathan Hales, potentially, because it's based on a story by George Lucas and screenplay by Lucas and Jonathan Hales. I could make guesses for them about how they think things work. I don't want to do that, though, because that would be very inappropriate for me to do that in that way. But I'm just... This idea here, I'm saying she is a hypocrite. All right, she has way too much skill, way too much experience to not be practiced at this, to not exercise at warfare, and yet she's like, no, the Republic cannot have a standing army to defend itself. She understands the need for self-defense, but refuses to allow the Republic to defend itself. There's also the whole, she believes in rule of law, but she doesn't have an issue with Palpatine violating it by being there past his term. She is a hypocrite. She truly is. And it's just so frustrating because, I mean, in the one case, it is no, the Separatists have a point, and you need to be agreeing with them. All right, you really do need to be agreeing with them on that. Dooku is, and I'm trying to think. Oh, wait, no. The Stars Like Dust. It's over there on a stack of books. Yeah, that's it. Isaac Asimov's story, very good story. I read it too recently for me to do an assigned reading on it, though. But it is my second favorite of my Asimov books, which I only have 5, so it's not that impressive. But It's kind of allegorical for, in some ways, World War II. Not perfectly though, because there is like a Nazi army. It's already conquered a whole bunch. And now there is the opposition, and you're mainly tracking through a lot of that. And there's basically two main opposition forces. One is being led by, I don't remember his name. He's an asshole though. This leader of this one planet that is very powerful, very economically powerful, and all that. And then there's another that's a mystery, where it's like there's this one old dude who he he encountered it once. That his ship was damaged. He was seemingly rescued, and he woke up and saw, like, he was injured. He woke up and saw like a fleet being built, and then he like fell asleep. Well, wasn't lost consciousness again because he was injured. Was back on his ship, and then was in orbit around the planet he was trying to get to, but he was the only survivor, and just basically you have these two forces. Well, the one dude, it's very clear as you get to know him, he is completely manipulative, and even if he were to succeed at toppling the tyranny, yes, that is actually the name that Asimov gave them. Hey, I'm not going to come with names either. It's just that one not so good. Although to be fair, some of the other names in that are actually pretty good. Like the rancher of Wedimos, I think it was. It's been a while since I read it, like maybe a year, but it's a good book. I do recommend that one very easily. End of Eternity is my favorite of his. But anyhow, it's clear he's doing this for his own personal gain. He is not actually interested in stopping the tyranny in order to achieve freedom. No, he wants to be in power. That's exactly why. Dooku is very much that as well, because it's also like he doesn't care about law. He really doesn't. He sees the corruption, and it's almost like well, yes, I know the Republic is corrupt, and obviously, yes, I am corrupt as well, but my corruption is better. So it's like, dude, I mean, it cheapens him as a character, and they shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't be doing that because it makes certain other things about his character too weak. He should be more imposing, and him being more honest would be helpful. So if it were something like, instead of it being that, he does believe, if it were I do believe in rule of law, the Geonosians, however, I can't control. You're on their planet, and they're not part of this. Like, we're separatists, we're not yet unified, so we don't have laws. I can't help you. Like, if it were a genuine, I can't help you. Instead, he's just basically bargaining with the whole, well, they're going to kill you unless you join us. If you join us, then I can say something and save you. It's like, in other words, I'm going to have you killed unless you do what I want, in which case then you live. It's like, it's barely a pretense. It's obvious what's going on here. But it would be better if it were more of a, look, I'm the guy that brought them all together. I'm trying to have them follow the law, but you know what? They really don't want to do that, and I can't force them to, because there are things going on here that are more important than your lives. Sorry. That would have been a bit better, but now what we got. Okay, Mace could hardly believe the incredible sight unfolding before him as thousands of Republic ships washed down on the assembled fleet of the Trade Federation, dropping tens of thousands of clone troopers to the surface of the planet. I get the whole clone troopers. 200,000 or whatever it was that are ready. Got that. They have armor, they have weapons. Got that. That makes sense. The people on Kimono... no, not Kimono. That's not it. Kamino. There we go. People on Kamino, they breed armies. Obviously, they're going to have that. Where are these thousands of ships coming from? For a government that doesn't have a formal military, they should have got the hardware awfully fast. I mean, Kamino's, they're cloners. Buying armor, or actually manufacturing it, that's not unreasonable. buying the weapons. That's reasonable. I don't think that they would necessarily manufacture them because, like, well, I mean, we have to make people to your specification. It makes sense that they also need to be able to make the clothing. That's just going to be easier if they do that themselves, I figure. But the weapons, I think they'd be buying those. So they'd be importing those. The ships, too. Where the hell did they come from, though? And then it's also so you had, Camino was erased from the map so they could do this in secret. Who the hell is manufacturing thousands of ships that nobody realizes? That they're just doing this, and that because it's one thing to hide a couple million people in a city that's underwater, that on a planet that no one really visits because it's not on maps except people do know where it is. But a fleet is a different matter. I mean, a fleet is a different matter. I care about this stuff. I do. And in fact, I'll even go this far. Technically, there is an answer. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for a couple reasons. One is that a fleet of thousands of ships would need to be connected to a planet somehow, such that there would be, the connection would be noticeable. The other is, the answer that I can give you is one that is real. That is exactly something that could happen, and I'll potentially use it in one story that I have ideas for. But the problem is, it only makes sense if you understand the scale of interstellar space. Or dark space, I prefer to call it, which is actually very relevant for the point. You build the fleet away from any systems in what I call dark space, because there, chances are no one's gonna find it because it's dark. It doesn't have to be giving off light. Even if it is, it's not gonna be at the brightness of a star, so it's not gonna stand out. It's gonna be smaller than a star. It's gonna be smaller than a planet. So you actually could have a shipyard in the middle of nowhere that, so long as you can get the materials there, that's a problem though, because it connects back to a planet or multiple planets even. So it's like, but you could do that. You could build a huge military in the middle of nowhere in a galaxy and then conquer the galaxy. You could feasibly do that because there's a lot more empty, well, technically space isn't empty, but there's a lot more of that. Then there's a lot more of dark space than there is of light space, essentially. I don't really like calling it light space, but yeah, it's dark space and non-dark space. There's a lot more of it. But, as I said, that's something you only would do if you understand the scale of things. There's no way Star Wars understands the scales of anything. Okay? I'm saying they planets, they treat as though everything is like a half hour away, based on what we had in Phantom Menace. In this, it was, Slave One's sensors could pick up ships on the other side of a planet. It's like, planets are big, man. No. I mean, not unless you had, like, relay systems, but that's not described. It's Slave One's sensors were picking it up. It's like, no. And it's also the whole, they've got ships that will, by sublight, it seems, go from one system to another. No. That's crossing light years. And by the way, Star Trek also makes that mistake, but it's just, you need an understanding of scale, and you need to explain that then. Because it's so alien to, I think, a lot of people. That what the true sense of scale is. So, yeah, it's just one of those, and suddenly there's thousands of ships. Where'd they come from? Don't ask. But it's kind of, don't ask. Especially when you consider that the Trade Federation has had a fleet of its own for better than a decade. And this is a fleet that can challenge it? That had to be known about. Okay, or, well, it had to be known about because it's either built somewhere else and then just no one ever looked. Or if you want to go, oh, but they were at Camino. It's like, how were they building it? Because that's a massive amount of materials having to come in for a species that doesn't know how to build that isn't described as knowing how to build ships. They know cloning. They don't necessarily know ships. So again, you'd have to be involving a lot more people, which means this conspiracy is huge, or more realistically, it's not secret. So yeah, it's the way I would with Shipyard and Dark Space. The way I would probably do that to cheat, so that people wouldn't know, is not actually bring resources from a planet. Sneak asteroids away. And some of those will just be lost, out there, that you could find some that are in dark space and pull them over. So long as they have the metals you need. And some do, some don't. I don't know if the stuff in the Oort cloud, so that's out by where Pluto is, I'm not sure how much heavy stuff would be there. In theory, the solar system has what's called the Vulcanoids, which is an asteroid belt that's between the Sun and Mercury, and contains a bunch of heavy metals because it's so close. Gravity pulled it close to the Sun. We don't know because they would be small and so near the Sun, it would be very, very difficult to see. But the theory is that they might be there, and the term for them is Vulcanoids. But even the asteroids in the main asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, even there are many that do have heavy metal stuff. Like, I mean, one thing that has been talked about, I once heard some people make fun of it, it's like, no, it's actually a great idea, is to take an asteroid from there, bring it in orbit of Earth, and start mining into that to collect materials, but also to make it into a space station. And it actually makes a great deal of sense. The trick would be moving it, but it would be far larger than anything we could construct. Give us a lot of scientific information that we would not be able to get any other way. It would serve as a better launch point than even the moon, because the gravity would be so much lower. Could assemble a spacecraft on that, then launch from it with very little cost for liftoff. And also potentially some of those asteroids, I think they figured that the amount of gold and platinum on some of them is like more than the world's GDP in value. I mean, it's absurd how much materials some of them have. So it's like if you could get one of those and pull those out, yeah, you could do a whole bunch with that. So it is possible, but it's like you have to have an understanding of the science here. And mine isn't that great, but it's better than what's in here. Sorry, but it is kind of true. It also reminds me of something, and we'll try to wrap this up soon. Asimov, chemistry professor, I think? I mean, true, we mostly know him for writing about robots and such, but he does actually have a science background. I'm not sure how many science fiction writers do, which, by the way, I should be more specific with Asimov, and technically myself. He had a lot more education than me, but we do have formal science backgrounds. It ain't necessary, though. Trust me. A lot of the stuff I got by just reading it because it's interesting and I read it. If you want to write science fiction, but you're not necessarily scientific minded, like you don't want to take science courses, I'd still suggest you take basic ones, high school physics. Yeah. And also some chemistry. Biology would be good too. Just the basics in high school, but then just read a bunch. And I don't mean science fiction stuff. I mean find science newsletters and such and read that. If you can, try to actually also find press releases from universities and other research institutions. I think MIT has, puts out stuff, although some of their stuff will be not about the science, but about, hey, let's talk about this person who did it. It's like, I don't care about the person. I want to know about what they did, about the actual science here. I don't even need their names. I want to know about science. There's also Berkeley Lab. Actually, a lot of the American science labs do put stuff out publicly, with press releases at least. So Berkeley Lab I know does. I'm just trying to remember. I think Los Alamos does as well, but Berkeley Lab, actually, they spend time on it. Argonne, I believe, does it as well at a decent level. There's a third I'm trying to remember, but it's just not coming to mind. Los Alamos, though, I think I have looked, and maybe it's just that their research tends that they don't necessarily put out as much research as the others, but read that stuff. And it is You can go and find it on their websites. It's pretty easy. And of course, other places that aggregate. Sometimes they aggregate the news together so you can see it, or they're writing it up themselves. Do that. Nothing wrong with that. Some of that you will learn things that even if you worked to a PhD, you might not encounter. And I'm completely serious on that, which is in some ways sad, but it's kind of the nature of education, sadly. Well, formal focused education, where it's like you focus down on this. So now the stuff out here you're missing because you're focused here. And even sometimes stuff in here because you're focused on like what's in the textbooks, not necessarily the new stuff that should be added to the textbooks. Because you don't have the new textbook yet. So anyway, more than enough of my talking. But I guess if I just kind of wrap that up, and also some of the other stuff, I understand why people may not like this. You have to be technical. With any story. It doesn't, this is science fantasy, not science fiction. And I've written superhero fantasy. You still have to be technical with it. You have to be pedantic with it. Because the details, you may end up with an asshole like me reading it. He's going to be like, that's not right. That's not how that works. What are you going to do? You're stuck now. You got somebody who's like, hey, this is wrong. Be technical, be pedantic, so it's perfect there, or at least a lot better, a lot closer to it than what you see here. And just in case, because I could believe some people are like, oh, but this is so well known, this is so famous. What are you? Who reads your stuff? It's like, that's fine, but have you read my stuff? Just it's a fair point. It's like, okay, let's say you've read this and you think it's great, and you think that I'm wrong. It's like, okay, fine, have that opinion. Nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing for you to have your own opinion. You shouldn't have mine. I'm just trying to bring up points for you to think about. But it's also, if you want to compare my writing to theirs, you need to read it. But also don't, and just criticize what my opinions are here. That's fine too. But my point is, if you want to start getting into like, oh, well, they clearly know how to write and you don't, it's like, well, until you read my stuff, you don't know that either. Technically, I don't know it either, because I'm the only one who reads any of it, so my opinion's going to be biased. Hey, I know it. Alright, that's enough of my rambling, isn't it? Sorry. See you next time.